All right, well, I'm sure you can see from the headline next to me what we are talking about. Does the Second Amendment give you the right to conceal, carry a gun outside your home? The Supreme Court is going to decide. This is big news. The Supreme Court is taking up its first major Second Amendment case since 2010. And I, for one, am looking forward to the outcome on this. Let's talk about it. I'm Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a legal and political commentator here on YouTube. If you like that stuff, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any videos, okay? All right. So this is from Outdoor Life. I will have this article linked down in the description below because it's kind of a long one. We're not going to go through all of it. So I encourage you to look at it because it's a fair article and it's pretty comprehensive on the issue. But let's talk about the issues as we're going here. And let's start with this headline. And this headline is really, really well done. The reason I say that is because it is framing the limited constitutional question that the court is going to address. Now, the court can go a lot of ways from this, but it's always important to distill a Supreme Court ruling in particular down to the underlying question of the case, because the court is going to answer this question, and what other things it says when coming up to this answer are less and less important as they get further and further away from the question. This is an important part of reviewing any Supreme Court case. What question is the court answering? Because Supreme Court decisions are rarely as broad as they're made out to be. But that being said, let's look at it again. Does the Second Amendment give you the right to conceal carry a gun outside your home? That's a very, very good question. And the Constitution is unclear on this. Now, what it is not answering, but we really do need answered, is does the Second Amendment give you the right to carry a gun outside your home? And that should be a yes. That should automatically be a yes. That should have been a yes back in 2008 when Scalia decided on Heller, but he was answering a limited question in Heller as well. Does the Second Amendment allow you to keep a gun inside your home for the purposes of self-defense? That's why there's such a problem of trying to apply these Supreme Court decisions in broad ways. Heller should be applied broadly, but that wasn't the question they were asked. That's not the question that they answered. They answered whether or not you had a right to keep a gun assembled inside your home in the District of Columbia for the purposes of self-defense. And they said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. The Second Amendment guarantees that right. So now we need to find out if that right is expansive to the point of concealed carrying a gun outside your home. And this comes from a New York State case. All right. And a New York State case, because New York is what's called a may issue state on concealed carry. There's two sort of subsets of concealed carry permitting that exist. There's may issue states, and then there are shall issue states. I'm from Minnesota. Minnesota is a shall issue state. So if you meet the criteria for a concealed carry permit, you don't have a criminal record, there's no sort of major issues, the sheriff has no discretion. You fill out your paperwork, you pay the fee, and they shall issue you a concealed carry permit based on your qualification. And that's it. You've done the requirements, you meet them, you get issued a gun. That sounds like a right, or not a gun, I should say. You get issued a permit to carry a gun. Now, Minnesota, it's a permit to carry, not concealed carry. So there's some difference there in general, but you have permissive carry as long as you meet the underlying requirements. New York, California, Hawaii, other states have this differently, and they are may issue states. That means you can meet all of the requirements you want, and they may or they may not issue you a permit. And that decision is typically at the discretion of the permitting authority, usually a county sheriff. And that can be subject to different ordinances and different regulations as well. In New York, Hawaii, and California, some specific counties of California, like Los Angeles County and others, people have complained that may issue means they will not. They simply will not issue outside of, extremely, extremely rare circumstances. They do not issue. And your average person has no meaningful access to their right to keep and bear arms. Bearing arms is the act of carrying them with you, having them on your person. To be unable to carry a gun is counterintuitive to the Second Amendment right. You have a right to keep and bear them, not just have them, but to have them with you. And so if there is no meaningful right to carry, if there's no meaningful ability to carry because a state simply won't issue you the permit, then you are violating the Second Amendment right. It's pretty clear how that should work out. But that is the issue in this case. That is what the Supreme Court is going to decide. Do you have a right under the Constitution to conceal, carry a gun outside your home? Now, how is this going to go? We don't know. We don't know. You never know how the Supreme Court is going to rule on these issues. The Supreme Court is technically at an ideological split of either 6-3 or 5-4 conservative, favoring, depending on how you look at Chief Justice Roberts, who has not been ruling along with the conservatives as much in recent years. But even without him, they technically have a 5-4 majority that seems ready to recognize a Second Amendment case. 4 of the justices have specifically called for a need to highlight these rights. And that need is real. The Supreme Court has not decided a major Second Amendment case in 10 years. It'll be probably at least 11 years by the time they get around to issuing this decision. And prior to that, it was 2 years before that. But prior to that, it was 1936 or 39, I think, 1939. It's been a very long time. We do not have a lot of jurisprudence around the Second Amendment. That 39 case is also bonkers, by the way. We'll talk about that a different day. But we do not have any case law to really round out what the Second Amendment right looks like, what those reasonable restrictions are, and it's largely been held to individual circuit courts. So if you're in the Ninth Circuit dealing with Hawaii and California, they've been much more restrictive on Second Amendment rights than other circuits have. And that makes for problematic enforcement, problematic legal understanding by the populace who may be traveling state to state, and there is no consistency. And so what we're hoping the Supreme Court does here is lays out some consistency. My thoughts on this are the Second Amendment gives you way more rights than we recognize at all in regards to guns, but that isn't playing out in reality. However, I think the Supreme Court should decide that, yes, the Second Amendment gives you a right to conceal, carry a gun outside your home. Do I think they will do that? No. No, I do not think the Supreme Court will recognize that the Second Amendment gives you a right to conceal, carry a gun outside your home. What I think they will recognize, and what I think is the practical outcome of this, is they will recognize a Second Amendment right to carry a gun outside your home and suggest that states either need to have open carry or they need to have meaningful shall issue conceal carry permits. If they don't want to allow open carry in their state, they must allow conceal carry permitting or some sort of carry permitting scheme for either conceal or open carry. That is a shall issue permitting scheme. I still think that's an unconstitutional infringement on the Second Amendment. Let's be very clear on that. I do not think that a permit requirement makes sense for any amendment. You don't have to have a permit for speech. You don't have to have a permit to be free from torture. You don't have to have a permit to be safe and secure in your possessions, in your home and in your person. You don't have to have a permit to get an attorney. You don't have to have a permit to not have your land taken by the government without just compensation. Let's be very, very honest. Permitting for your rights is not something that seems to be congruent with the intent of the Constitution, but that is something that we have just through the courts accepted on the Second Amendment. So I think being consistent with the idea that permitting is part of how the Second Amendment has been lensed for several years now and how the general populace sees the Second Amendment today. They will stick with a permitting scheme, but I'm hoping that that permitting scheme will be a shall issue scheme, whereas as long as you do not have any, felony restrictions on gun ownership, as long as you are not under probation or under some sort of restraining order, you are presumed to be allowed to exercise your fundamental right. Now, again, personally, I wish it would go much farther than that. I think that is the realistic outcome in probably a 5-4 decision. Although Roberts, being a fence sitter, he may concur in part and with the opinion of the court, and may dissent in part with some part of it. We'll have to see where this goes. But I think it's unquestionable that the Second Amendment's plain language, especially when analyzed under stare decisis with Heller, with the Scalia's opinion in Heller, I think it's unquestionable that the right to bear arms, as in to keep them on your person, is part of the Second Amendment. It is a critical element of the right. There is no meaningful right to keep a gun if you cannot similarly bear the gun on your person, and that's what I'm hoping the Supreme Court does here. But I would love to know what you guys think about it. Why don't you drop a comment down below? Let me know. If you like this video, click the like and share it around. Get people talking about this issue. It's going to be a while before the court actually chimes in on this. They're set to hear it sometime in the next session. That starts in October, and it could be any time between October of this year and June of next year. So we've got a while, but this is an issue that needs to be talked about, and the Second Amendment has been treated as a second-hand right or second-class right by the court for far too long. Think about most of the other amendments out there have more cases done per year than the Second Amendment has had done in the history of the court. So it's very exciting to see this happening. It's exciting to see it with the current ideological divide on the court, because we are likely more likely now than maybe ever to get a favorable ruling in favor of our actual liberty that is supposed to be guaranteed by the Constitution. So I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, peace. Peace.